Well, hi, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of the In the Bullseye Podcast. I'm voice of the Bulls, Paul Peck. It's our semi-regular meeting with University at Buffalo Vice President and Director of Athletics Mark Alnutt. I feel like the last time we did this, only a few little things have happened since then, have they? Every time we do this, there's a gap of a month or 6 weeks or whatever, and you always have incredible stories to tell.
Yeah, I do like how you always term this semi-regular scheduled, podcast. We just need to have like a direct, maybe it's, I don't know, quarterly or whatever the case might be.
You're busy. You're very busy.
I'm busy. You're busy.
I'm
Matt
not that
Walford's
busy.
Tyler's busy.
I know.
I always have to beg these guys to get on with you, and they acquiesce, and then we're here talking. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's always fun to catch up with you. We do have a lot of stuff that's been going on related to UB here and coaching hires and searches, and then we always like to dip into the national stuff that involves your role in the Football Oversight Committee and all the changes that continue to happen on what seems like a daily basis in the world of college athletics. But let's start by turning the calendar back a little bit. And before we get too deep into the change and the hire of Kristen Sharkey for women's basketball, I do want you to talk about what you feel like the lasting effect has been in your mind of the incredible run to the WNIT title, what the winning the title has meant, what putting people in this arena to a level we hadn't seen for women's basketball in a long time, what that could mean moving forward.
Yeah, no, sure. So as we talk about the 24-25 women's basketball season, obviously with all of our sports, we have the goal of winning a MAC championship. Fell short of that opportunity in Cleveland, but we knew that just based on the successful campaign we had this past season that we had an opportunity to go to the WNIT. So when they invited us to participate, we accepted it. Now, the WNIT, it's more of an invitational, and it's also based on, for just lack of a better term, you kind of buy into that tournament, okay? So not everyone opts in, but still, as we saw, the field is a very competitive field. So as we, went through that process, we elected to, if we had the opportunity to host every game. And how they determine who the hosts are is a combination of a couple things, attendance at the venue, the amount of money that is guaranteed in terms of when you submit a bid, and a lot of times that's just based on what we anticipate, what our revenues would be, expenses to be able to have a game. So, for us, we opened it up against future UMass, future MAC opponent in
That's
UMass,
right.
and we had the win. We were slightly under 1,000 people. As we moved on to the next round, Southern Indiana, we went there.
That was on the road, right? And then you were back home for Rutgers, correct?
We won that, and then, but even then, winning those two games, you can almost see, actually after the UMass, you can almost see like a change, not necessarily a change in mindset, but excitement to be in the tournament, and then opportunity, as we advance, we can actually win this thing. So for us, I think the excitement caught on in the community about, hey, there's a team that's playing in a tournament. There's a team that has the opportunity to, possibly win that championship. And then the other thing, too, is having a program like Rutgers coming in on a Sunday that, we had close to 2,000 people, for that game against Rutgers. And what an exciting game, as all of our games were pretty exciting women's basketball. We win that, and then we had the opportunity to host Cleveland State. And that game, again, the excitement, it's getting in April, essentially. We were able to have over 3,000 people for that game. We win that game. And then, one thing that we had to do that week leading up is I was committed, our team was committed to, hey, if we need to enhance the guarantee to WNIT, again, just thinking of what we've seen from, the increased attendance, the increased interest in our women's basketball program, let's do that. So when we were awarded that bid shortly after we won the semifinals, against Cleveland State, we were excited. And, obviously it showed when we had the championship game and it was a sellout crowd, people were all
It was
in.
amazing.
The atmosphere was something else. That first basket that was scored was incredible. When we were down and making the comeback, just the roar of the crowd, the excitement in there, it was phenomenal. And even having the conversation with the Troy AD prior to it, because their team had been on the road for 9 straight days. And they wanted to put in an aggressive bid as well. But
they wanted to go home, right?
Yeah, they wanted to go home. But, obviously I think what the WNIT folks saw in terms of how everything was progressing, our attendance, the atmosphere that they awarded us. And I think that did so many things for our program. Number one, just the pride effect here in Western New York, pursuing a championship, winning a championship, the excitement level in terms of people who have not been a regular fan coming into the arena, seeing the exciting brand of basketball that they saw, us being able to capture new fans, new season ticket holders for next year was exciting. So, obviously just the effect of having a team like that win a championship, the effect on not just the athletic department, the university, but also Western New York was something else. So, but now with that comes the spoils.
Then,
right. As I look at your next note here, so
you didn't have a whole lot of time to enjoy.
We cut down the nets, taking all the picks, walk off, and I told this story a couple times. I know I get home, and I'm like, oh, that recliner looks so nice. I sit back in that recliner. It's a Saturday night.
Life of an AD.
This is great.
No recliner in the life of an AD.
Yes, and then I know this number that's calling my phone right now. It's Coach Burke's agent, and that's when he tells me like, hey, Arizona's interested in talking to our Mark. I don't know, where she is on this. I know they're talking to a few people. We'll see. We'll let this play out. But obviously, what happened, and excited for number one, what Coach Burke did for our program, last 3 years, and just the growth, again, the excitement of that program, and deserves the opportunity to go to Arizona, and wish her the best.
It's the nature of the business. You have done a great job of explaining that to us in other scenarios, but is there part of it where it's like, man, we just did this amazing thing, we've got all these people excited, and then along comes this sort of punch in the gut of, we lose our coach, and now I have to get to work to figure out how to maintain the success level of the program? I mean, there's some human element in there. It's like, oh man, can't we just enjoy the spoils for a little bit?
There's definitely a human element in it, but also, you come to the point where you expect these things to happen, and you need to have a plan, and yes, like I said, my recliner felt great for the all 7 seconds that I was sitting in it, and then I get up, and then the adrenaline kicks in.
Sure.
More than anything,
and you're always prepared for this moment anyway.
Just already prepared, planning for what next, what the next opportunity is, what that's going to look like, what the timeline's going to look like, who we're going to be talking to, who's going to assist us with the search, who's on the committee, all that. So, once received word from, and Becky she's great, very transparent, kept me up to speed, the 4 days since we were initially notified, about her decision to go to Arizona. So once that happened, we were able to move forward with, hiring our next head coach.
So obviously that's Kristen Sharkey,
yes.
And you have talked a lot about it, and I think most Bulls fans have certainly enjoyed seeing Coach Sharkey come back. Now that we had a chance to do one of these records with Coach Sharkey, and I looked it up, that she's been on the job 32 days,
sure.
Right? So in 32 days of observing what she's done as the head coach, who had to rebuild an entire team and try to keep that momentum going, what have been your observations, and maybe what's something that you've learned about Coach Sharkey? We feel like we all know everything about Coach Sharkey. Maybe there's something that you've learned differently.
Just her growth, her maturity, her preparedness to assume this position knowing that you're going to have a roster of 0 people, okay? And really articulating that plan in the interview process with not just the detail aspect of it, but truly with the passion of what this is going to look like, and this coming to fruition after we had the opportunity to offer the position, and she accepted. You've heard me say this at the press conference and a couple other times. Offered her a position Thursday evening, and then I remember that Friday morning as she was on her way to Buffalo, she's like, my staff's already set. So, but that was part of it, finding a staff.
She was ready.
Yeah, finding a staff, having a staff that's going to work with her, people that she can trust, people that she feels comfortable with, to be able to continue to build this thing. And then, from a roster standpoint, the last, 32 days, being able to build that roster from 0 to right now 13, with the possibility of adding, 1 or 2 more. It's been very good. And I will say this too, just the development, the professional development of a person and I was a Sharky fan when I first met her. My before I even started, when I met, her and the staff and the team in Albany for that Sweet 16 run to now, it's been something that I tell you, when you talk about just the growth of a person, the mindset of a person from 7 years ago to now, definitely deserve this opportunity. I'm excited about it.
You've been involved in a lot of coaching searches, not just here at UB, but throughout your career. Where has, on that list of things that you want to know about a candidate, where has the ability to build or rebuild a roster quickly, how much has that climbed maybe to the top of the list, or at least equal with the vision for the program moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's a priority because, obviously you have to have the student athletes to be successful, but then also too, it's not just to build a roster just to build a roster. Let's have some plan and thought in terms of how we're going to build a roster, what we need to look for, what qualities we need to look for, what characteristics we need to look for. How do these pieces all fit together, which, again, just terms of just hearing her plan, the influx of both incoming freshmen as with transfers, it's a good mix. And then more importantly is, how this matches with, the style of play that she wants to utilize this upcoming year. So, from a priority standpoint, that's up there. But again, at the end of the day, in order to get there, it's still about having those relationships, and having those key relationships is very important. So, in a sense, when people used to talk about, being a great recruiter, I mean, this is still a part of it. And I feel that, very similar to when I look at a Pete Limbo, for example, when he was a head coach, and he talks about how he grew as a coach, spending those 8 years or so as an assistant. The same thing with, Sharky, who was obviously a standout student athlete here, assistant coach under Coach Jack, but then going to Syracuse at that P4 level and being able to, assume, the recruiting coordinator responsibility, be able to assume the NIL responsibility. So, those experiences, help you grow. And yeah, roster is very important, but it's like how, not, hey, we're just going to grab these 13, 14 people just to grab them, but you have to have some strategy behind it as well.
Gotcha. On the men's basketball side, an interesting little piece of information just coming out here. And I do want to say that those of us on the broadcast side want full credit for bringing Turner Battle back into the UB family, but you've got other duties for Turner Battle as well.
We do, and we'll see if he can be able to maintain those color commentary duties.
I hope so. We all hope so.
ESPN Plus, broadcast, but, just a phenomenal person, and again, when we say that, we're not just talking about him as the former standout student athlete, him as the, the successful assistant head coach. But the thing that, really attracted me to Turner, which I really got to know him more, after we, recognized his jersey in alumni, what was that, 2 years ago?
2 years ago,
2 years ago when we did that, is just, he's in the point of his career. He's a family person, here embedded, want to anchor down in Buffalo. And, we had some conversations about, what's next in his career, being athletic director at Park, what does he, want to aspire to be? What does that career path look like? And, as we were having these conversations, we, talked about, being in development and having those type of opportunities. But as we're in this new space now with NIL and then eventually rev share, and just how important it is to have this position of general manager, which again, is so many definitions in terms of how
it's so new that
it's.
I think it's still evolving, isn't it?
It is still evolving, but as we see it, we're like, gosh, if this works for Turner, obviously having the conversation with George, and give credit to Sean Ferreira as well, that being able to have him in this GM position as being number one, he's a connector. He has relationships not just here within our UB family and our family of alumni and fans, but even nationally in his role as a head coach with the AAU programs, and just going through that path as been assistant coach. And he's just all around just a genuine person where we can send him into any room to talk to donors, to talk to alumni, to get in front of parents of recruits, to get in front of recruits themselves. And so, he's just going to be a valuable asset, for our men's, basketball program. Who knows? I might pull him in other directions as well, because he'll be able to handle that.
Everything you said about him is what we have gotten to know in working with him, and even those of us that have known him back when he was a player. He's one of the finest human beings any of us have been around, and it's perfect. He knows the college basketball world. I can't tell you how many times in preparing for us to broadcast games, in talking to an opposing coach, they spend the first 5 minutes telling stories because they've known each other, and as soon as you go, hey, I'm going to have Turner Battle on this call. Oh, okay, like that. The coach, if the coach was busy, he found the time to do it. So I think it's brilliant, and I'm happy for Turner because I think it's a perfect place for him, and I'm really curious to see how you're going to kind of evolve all this position for him.
And again, he has that growth mindset. So we're gonna come in. He's going to be learning on the run, but it's going to be one of those things where 3-5 years from now, I think he's going to be a huge piece of not just our men's basketball program, but our athletic department.
Well, that's great. All right, let's shift some gears to some other sports. You had a chance to continue feeling the good vibes of UB Athletics thanks to the tennis teams, both men's and women's tennis teams. What an amazing run. I brought up the question, how often or has it ever happened in the MAC where a school had both MAC champions for men's and women's tennis, and we don't think it's happened very often.
No, not at all. Well, kudos to both Lee Nickel and Kristen Maines. What you have here, first on the men's side, is what a dominant performance really throughout the season, especially the MAC part of the regular season there. Only losing one match, but then having the ability to go to Western Michigan and be able to win the championship as the number 1 seed. I mentioned this to Lee. Like I said, Lee, you had me stressed out. You lose that doubles point, and then you got to win 4 of the next 6 matches to be able to win it. And just being able to follow along the stats, it was great to see that win at the end. And I remember I calledLee shortly
he
after.
He told us this story.
I called Lee.
He said he didn't answer your call.
Yeah,
which,
he didn't answer with the voicemail. I'm
come
just
on,
like,
Lee.
no. You know what? I get it. He's celebrating, probably doing, Sarah Trinelli probably has him running around doing all this media stuff. But, the cool thing is I got the missed call. I said, I know we'll connect. And then like a minute later, I get this FaceTime from him, and it's like him and the entire team celebrating with me on the phone.
That's awesome.
So that was awesome. And then you go on the women's side, strong non-conference during the, decent MAC conference, ended up qualifying because now there's only 4 teams that go to the tournament. And so where they have the 4th seed that has the most difficult path, and they're able to, beat the number 1 seed and then turn around and beat the number 2 seed. And then I think what was very special is, we arranged a watch party at one of our partners at the Anchor Bar over here on Maple, and you had both teams over there. And the cool thing was they both ended up in Columbus, which, just adds some synergy there in terms of, people can go there. And then also we had our track team there at the Jesse Owens Invitational. So we had a lot of our fans already really pretty much embedded in Columbus. So to be able to have that opportunity is special, and kudos to both programs in terms of what they've been able to do this year.
Yeah, it really was. It was really fun, and both coaches talked about having the other team there was a really nice bonus to cheer each other on. That shows the camaraderie that goes on here. You've hired a new softball coach as well since the last time we talked, and it seemed like a pretty easy hire and a pretty simple hire, and for people around town who follow that sport, not an unfamiliar name.
No, not at all. So excited for Chelsea Plimpton, and really the background story there is, it seems like I've been recruiting Chelsea to come back to Buffalo for the past almost 2 years, to be honest with you. And there was an opportunity when Mike Riegel was looking for a pitching coach, last year. And finally, I think Aaron Stang and I cornered her and said, hey, you better come to UB or else, and we were able to bring her back. And again, I think in our mind, if something was to happen to Mike, that, she'd be a prime candidate. But we also, as I explained to her, we wanted to also see how she operated, in this role. And, she passed with flying colors. And and give credit to Mike, brought him in as a interim coach shortly after I first got here, and he held that position for 7 years and just decided it's time to retire. And then right there, it was just a natural fit to bring up Chelsea. And what you have in Chelsea is a person who, again, is a Western New York native, Will South graduate, probably one of the best pitchers, not in Western New York, in New York history. Went on to have a stellar career at Fordham, and then has been in the coaching ranks for about 10 years prior to taking a short exodus from the coaching field, and then, like I said, we were able to bring her back next year. So again, excited to have her. The response from the team was very, very positive when Aaron Sang and I announced who the next coach would be. And even my wife sent me this text from one of her friends. She didn't give me the name, but she's like, the text was something like, your new softball coach is good. Congratulations on that. And then she went on to say, anytime she pitched in high school, we would stop our modified softball practices to go and watch her pitch because she was that good. But already secured a couple commitments, and I feel with just her relationships here in the state of New York and in the Northeast, and just the competitor that she is. She's a attention to detail type person, and that's going to get after it. So I'm excited for our softball program.
All right, next topic is one that's ever-changing, and as we record this, by the time somebody listens to it, things could have changed. But the House settlement, as it relates to all NCAA teams, is maybe the biggest piece of news and legislation that in your lifetime as an AD and ours as fans. But what's the latest update as we sit here in late May about where this thing is heading, what it's going to mean, and how it affects things here at UB?
Yeah, so for people who've been hibernating for the past 2 years, don't know what the House settlement is, essentially, just in layman's terms, it's an opportunity for institutions to provide more benefits directly to our student athletes in terms of rev share, NIL, Austin, whatever the case might be. So previously, institutions could not provide, outside of Austin money, could not provide direct compensation to student athletes. So this allows that to happen. There is a component of a roster component for all sponsored sports in the NCAA that you can't go over certain numbers. So from a football standpoint, we'll just use football as an example. That roster limit is now 105 student athletes. But what that does mean is that now there's no longer a scholarship maximum of 85 scholarships. So theoretically, you could scholarship all 105 student athletes. Now, many schools aren't to that point to be able to scholarship fully all student athletes. But, the good thing is that what you've been able to do is being able to provide, even if it's not a full scholarship, maybe it's a $5,000 scholarship, whatever the case is, to more of your student athletes to get there. So each sport has a limit. She granted preliminary approval, in September, and then the final approval was supposed to happen back in April, and then there was a little bit of back and forth in regards to these roster numbers.
Limits, yes.
Because there was some
certain people will lose their spots.
Opportunities.
Right.
So she came back, hey, you guys need to, when I say you guys, sorry for not being more specific, but the defendants, being the P5 conferences at the time, who were named as defendants in NCAA, have to determine opportunities for these folks that might have lost these roster spots. So the plaintiffs and the defendants came together and have pretty much proposed an opportunity for institutions to opt in if they want to and be able to grandfather these folks in. So that's been presented back to the judge on May 16th, which was last Friday, and we're just hoping anytime soon that we'll get final approval. So what happens come July 1st is, there's opportunities for institutions like ourselves to be able to provide direct compensation from a rev share standpoint, and we already have a plan in place.
So you're operating as this is going to
and everybody
be in place
right
for the start of the fall sports.
Everybody is right now. So we've done a lot of work in terms of working with campus, in terms of working with SUNY, in regards to what this looks like, what the contract is going to look like. So we're prepared, ready to go. We're just waiting for the final approval and be able to implement this. And then also for folks who are, watching this podcast, listening in, we're going to even ramp up the communication on our end in regards to what does that look like, for our followers, our fans, or for our alumni to get involved.
Sure, because there are limits and restrictions about outside people being able to bring players in to help them with their business, but there are going to be rules that are going to have to be followed.
Yeah, there'll be rules that have to be followed, but ultimately it's just increasing that support for our operations. And when I say operation, it's not necessarily just the player compensation, it's just how we operate in general. And for us to be able to have those increased opportunities for our fans to get involved is going to be special and help us maintain our competitiveness.
All right, tell us what we're all going to see new at football games this year when things kick off in September.
Gosh, new at football games?
Yeah. We're not going to be able to miss how nice and big and new it's going to be, right?
Yeah, we are going to have ourselves, and I just have to give credit and thanks to one Matt Walford, who's in this room wearing the right Buffalo hoodie, which I appreciate that. We'll have a new video board, and again, it's taken a ton of work to get this thing literally off the ground, just going through the procurement process. But we have a vendor in play, which is, I would say, the industry leader in Daktronics, that is going to put together a phenomenal board in the existing foundation of the original board. But just again, the dimensions, the screen, all LED, new sound system. So I'm excited about it. Have a rendering, but I'm keeping it secret.
All right.
right now. But I tell you what got me more excited, and Matt's going to remember this conversation, is when I saw him obviously preparing for commencement, last week, and they have the temporary screen set up in the arena. I just asked him to give a comparison of that screen to our new video board. When he gave those dimensions compared to what we're going to have, I think I might have either started salivating, maybe a big smile on my face, maybe a tear came to my eye. It's probably just a wrath of emotion. Yeah, a wrath of emotion. I don't know if I just bowed down. I don't know if I collapsed and just excitement and giddiness. I have no idea, but it's definitely going to be a tremendous enhancement to how we operate, but more so just from that fan experience.
Great. And as we move through the summer and do this again, we'll talk a little more once things get laid out with the football schedule and your events and special things that go along with that. We'll talk more about that. Finally, we always like to get the latest update from you because you play a key role in the National Football Oversight Committee, which determines rules and timing and schedules and all that thing related to college football. What are you guys working on? What's the latest hot button topics coming out of your oversight committee meetings?
Well, just from an overall governance structure from NCAA standpoint, looking to obviously just be more nimble, more efficient. All the committees and all the people involved. So the one thing they're looking at doing is just kind of shrinking the number of committees, and also looking at who's the representatives are on those committees. Now the great thing for us, not just me, for us, is there's been great success with the oversight committees, with football oversight and then also men's and women's basketball oversight. So, those committees are essentially going to stay the same. And really with one change, which is key, is now we're going to absorb the rules committees. All right.
Okay.
And we'll talk more summer. I know we talked a little bit about some new rules that are going to be occurring this fall, but our group being able to absorb the rules committee. So now when rules are established, before you had to go to another committee to get them approved. Now just go through our group, and then we will move forward with approval. So we're excited about that structure and really being having some autonomy somewhat in regards to how we operate as compared to how the rest of the NCAA was operating. Really for us, it's from a football oversight perspective, is digging in more on the calendar, the off season, and spring and summer in regards to the transfer portal as well. So there's been several recommendations out there. The latest recommendation is now looking at an opportunity to go to just a one transfer portal window sometime in the spring, and then being able to have institutions have the flexibility in regards to when they hold their spring practices and then also their workout. So what I mean by that is you can essentially have something where, you know what, maybe you have a couple OTA practices in February.
A little more like the NFL model.
Yep. And then, you know, have this portal window open up, and then, you know what, maybe you do your spring period more so in late May, June, when
after your roster would be a little more set, right? Because that's the holdup now, right? Like, is my roster set? I still have the chance to lose players. I still have the chance to bring in players, and how that works around the practice schedules.
Exactly right. So, I mean, it's going to be different for each institution, but at the end of the day, again, allow those schools to have flexibility to where, you know what, maybe if they are a development program, you know what, they're going to have all their spring how it is, you know, right now, and then maybe have the OTAs in the summertime, or maybe if there is a new coach change or staff, and maybe there's something where, hey, we need to take more advantage of the spring. You might have the bulk of this after that transfer portal window, sometime in late May, when these transfers can get here to be able to hold your practices at that time, and then look at more so how it is right now, where July, especially as you get down to camp, you know, you have to have some discretionary, some time off and everything else. So just looking at that holistically, because you can't look at the transfer windows and try to establish a window or windows here without knowing what the winter and spring, summer calendar looks like. So a lot of work to be done. We're going to socialize it more and then, you know, see where we land.
All right. Speaking of time off, is you going to find any recliner time here in the next couple of months at all?
You know what? It does.
You owe your recliner some time.
Yeah, no, it does slow down, but, you know, there's always work to be done, you know, whether it's from just preparation for the upcoming year. You know, we're going to have a wealth of camps happening with our sport programs. You'll see me around Western New York, following my youngest son in travel baseball, you know, quite a bit. So I'm the guy in the recliner. I'm not the recliner. I'm sorry, in the lawn chair that's out there, just, you know, being myself and just enjoying, you know, time with the family. Well, this time, just he's the last one in the house, so it's just like the one that's left. Probably
Gotcha.
Gonna be the most spoiled one of the group.
Well, you deserve a little bit of time off, a little bit of recliner time, a little bit of time with the family, and it's that time of the year for everybody in the college athletics world. We will do this again as we get a little closer to the start of football season.
Semi-regularly, right?
Semi-regularly, right?
Like
hey,
that.
you know, if we can get the big guy over here to pin us down to, you know, a once a month, then it won't be semi-regularly. It will be regularly.
There you go.
So,
I like it, Paul.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Alnutt is the Vice President and Director of Athletics here at UB. Lot of stuff we covered. We hope you enjoyed the latest edition of the In the Bullseye Podcast.